we'll give everybody a couple more minutes to arrive. I think probably people had a bit of fun last night, so we'll be lenient. What's that? Yes, exactly. I'm good now, but you might find me reaching across to you during that. You guys think 2 more minutes? My Wi-Fi just went.
I just went, or is it
Just like as in, okay, it's back.
my phone ready for some telling?
Yeah. Yeah, if you say so. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Garrett Goodman. I'm the Director of Business Development for Watch It. We do video stuff. The panel was titled Mobiles and Millennials. And as we were putting the panel together, video kind of seemed to be the big thing. So probably focus a little bit more on video. Thank God Chris Hamilton is here from the BBC to tell us a little bit about what they've been doing with chat apps. And so before introducing the panel, I wanted to share some statistics that I've been seeing recently around the video space that I thought are really interesting, are worth putting out there. Millennials, younger generations, they seem to have this insatiable appetite for video content. And one of the things that I saw that really struck me was a study from Cisco, which predicted that by 2018, online video will account for 79% of global internet traffic. So video is growing in a big way. We can see that from the consumption side, we can see that from the production side as well, but also from advertising. I talk to a lot of publishers about their video strategy, and one of the things I continue to hear is that there's too much demand from advertisers and not enough supply of video content. I found an interesting stat from the IAB in the UK that says that actually 1 in every 5 pounds spent on internet display and mobile display ads is for video. So advertisers are making a big shift too. And the last stat I wanted to share is maybe one you guys have seen. It comes from Facebook. At the beginning of the year, they did a little report on the growth of video within Facebook. You may have seen as Facebook users that video seems to be everywhere. It auto-plays in your feed. They say that actually Facebook users are seeing 3.6 times more video compared to 1 year ago. So clearly, this big social network is putting a prioritization on the video format, right, on video content type. So it's going to be interesting to see how this international panel here has responded in general to the shifting consumption habits of audiences, both younger and their current audiences. So let me go ahead and introduce the panel. First up, all the way on the right, or I suppose on your left, we have Aurélien Viers, who is the Director of Digital News Development at l'Obs. L'Obs used to be called Le Nouvel Observateur. It's a French news weekly. It's also the 3rd largest news website in France. So he's going to tell us a little bit about what they've been up to in long-form content, photos and videos, and how they're attempting to attract a younger audience with this. Then we have Alessio Balbi, who's the Director of Audience Engagement for Gruppo d'Espresso. He set up this really interesting laboratory for experimentation called Trends, and he's going to tell us about what they've done there. And I'd also like you to tell us a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the differences between the content that works well on Trends and La Repubblica. Then we have Ben DePere, who is the editor of Channel 4 News, which is a public service broadcaster in the UK. The media regulator there has asked them to create more content for younger audiences, so he's going to show us about how they've responded to that request. And lastly, here we have Chris Hamilton, who's the social media editor for the BBC. They've been experimenting with all kinds of different new content formats. They've learned some interesting lessons, so he's going to go into that for us. So let's start all the way on the right with you, Aurélien. Go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, Garrett. So I wanted to talk about our new formats. Just for philosophy, we think new formats must be at the crossroads of 3 things: visual, mobile, and social media. And of course, you have to measure the success with metrics. I wanted to talk about 3 things: long form, photos, and new video formats. Long form, it's a bit provocative, but we think that we can attract a younger audience and younger subscribers. For us, to attract new subscribers is one of the priority of LOPS. And we think that long form can be a part of it. And we created 3 months ago LOPS du Soir with a format, a rendezvous, and also an application, a long form story, web exclusive, pushed every evening at 7 p.m. for mobile usage on the web or on the application. And we wanted to attract new, younger subscribers with L'Obs du Soir. So we have a dedicated app on iOS, Android, but also on the web. We have a freemium model at L'Obs. It's partly free, partly for subscriber. And some of the stories are also published on the magazine. So it's reverse publishing. So we have one long form every day. It's a huge effort for the newsroom. The editor-in-chief of L'Obs du Soir, Lisa Vaturi, select only the best stories from the newsroom, and it's a lot of work. Journalists spend days and days to write their story. We work with cartoonists, with photographer, so it's a great work. This story, for example, is an incredible story of one guy who shared his car on BlaBlaCar with Said Kouachi, one of the members of the terrorist group during the attack in Paris in January, the attack from Charlie Hebdo. And we found this guy and he told us his story. And this story only attracted many new subscribers to L'Obs. So we have, for example, also the story about an officer of the Ku Klux Klan, about El Papa, and also about our president. As you can see, it's pushed every evening at the same time at 7 p.m. So our return experience, we have new digital subscribers with this kind of story. We are going to have in the next weeks more precise demographic data on it. We have more web exclusive and in-depth story published, realized by the whole newsroom, print and web. So we have young journalists that were only working on our news, and now they also are writing their long-form story. And our standalone app is quite hard to promote. Photos, for us, it's a big part in our offer. It's slideshows and big pictures. It's 50% of the time spent on lobs.com. We wanted to work on something new, beyond slideshow and beyond big picture, with Instagram. I think for me, Instagram is a great community. It's not on our radar in the French newsrooms, but you can find, I think, stories. People, you can fact check stories with Instagram, and we wanted to invent something new. So we have been testing an Instagram wall with a new agency in Paris called Photonauer. And with that tool, you can search by hashtag, geolocation, and popularity. So we run some tests. It's very alpha version, it's beta version. It's already in progress. We made, for example, this test with their geolocation tool during the Fashion Week, and we wanted to present the picture in a new way. So we ran some tests with this wall. For example, you can see you have a direct link to the author profile, and also to a link to the Instagram picture. So as I said, it's just a test. We have to work on many things, including Instagram, the API, and to work more closely with the Instagrammers. We want to work with them before an event, or even better, to create an event with them. For example, assignments, for example, contests, and we have to work on also on the copyright issues. The law in French is very strict, and I think it's pretty okay with me. And we have to work on that too. For example, for news event, to work with this geolocation tool can be very useful, but of course we want to ask their permission to Instagrammers before using that picture. And what you have seen there, this Instagram wall, it's only an iframe, it's embed, and we want it to look more like an embed and a limited number of embed of Instagram pictures. I think we have to move on with photos. That's my take. I think it needs to be reinvented for the mobile and social media era. I don't know if you know Stellar, but for me it's very inspiring. I think they have reinvented the slideshow for mobile. So, and the storytelling, you can add your picture with Stellar, and you can just write some text, add your picture in these different ways. You can add text plus images. I think it's quite inspiring, and they have reinvented something for telling the story in picture. Point with video, we are working on new formats on videos. I wanted to talk about Le Plus. Le Plus is 100% participative website. It was created 4 years ago at Le Nouvel Observateur. I worked on it with Aude Baron, and now it's quite huge. We have 2 million unique visitors. We have 8 journalists that animates the community. You have experts, witness, bloggers, chronicles. So we have many things on the Plus, and it's been a huge success. And it was really targeted for a younger audience, and it's been working pretty well for 4 years. And we worked with them on new video formats, and the idea is that we have this huge community, very reactive. So we decided to test some new video formats with them. We call them. They are witness, they are bloggers, they are members of our community on the Plus. And the idea is that audio is quite more important than the video itself and the image itself. So we have this free rider, this ski champion. We called it just after a big snowfall in the French Alps, and he told us about his experience. We call a pilot, one of the members of our community after the Taiwan crash. It's a very interesting and it works pretty well. We assume that for our new video formats, we have to work on original reports, fact-checking, culture, and politics. Original reports, it's very important. I think a great story is 90% of the job, and we have to find engaging stories, especially for the younger ones. We made this report 7 days ago in Madrid, and it's the first demonstration of holograms. I don't know if you have seen it already, and it was very impressive. And we made an interview with an hologram too. It worked pretty well. We also are experimenting on time-lapse reporting. We made this video of the Mont Saint-Michel during a huge spring tide. It made more than 1 million views. So that's it. And we are working on new video formats with image plus text. Without voiceover, we are also doing some video with voiceover, but mostly without. And we are also working on formats on video with what I call video without videos, with infographics or cartoon, for example. Here are some examples. It's a project we are working on for report, for explainer. It's a 60 seconds format we are working on. And lessons we learn is promoting our videos is as important as producing them. Social media is one of the keys, but not only. If you have a great story, it's essential. A good title, good preview, but social media is important too. Lopes has a community of more than 2.4 million fans and followers with a very younger audience. So we do not upload our video on Facebook, but just teaser, trailer. That's a project we have been working on with WordCrunch. I don't know if you know the guys at WordCrunch. who made an excellent work. And we asked our community, the community from LOPS, and the community from
I am Charlie.
WordCrunch to say I am Charlie in their own native language after the Paris attack. And we put a trailer on Facebook, and it worked also pretty well.
I am Charlie.
Yo soy Charlie.
Yo soy Charlie Hebdo.
Ana Charlie.
Annie Charlie.
Eu sou Charlie.
我是查理。
Je suis Charlie.
So, and if you want to look at the whole video, it's there. We have a link on there. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Aurélien. I think I like a lot of what you guys have been up to. One of the things I particularly like is this idea of l'Aube du soir every day at the same time. And I like that because I think that there's a lot of power in establishing habits with your users and getting them used to the idea of coming back every day at the same time. It's funny, there's a bit of a parallel there between, television and people saying that they want to be able to consume their own content at their own time and not be beholden to somebody else's scheduling. But I do think that there is something powerful about being able to establish habits with your users so they know when to come back to see the newest edition. Alessio, why don't you show us what you've been up to at Trends?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alessio Balbi. I'm the head of audience engagement at Gruppo Espresso. I'd like to give you just a quick overview, and because I think that the best part of this panel could be your questions and the debate. So, just
head of audience engagement, you would say that, wouldn't you?
So, just a brief introduction on our approach about the mobile and millennials theme. As you know, Gruppo Espresso is the publisher, among others, of Repubblica.it, that is the most important Italian news website. We have at Repubblica.it an anecdotal case about new audiences coming from new platforms. That is what happened on December 2013 when actor Paul Walker died in a car accident. Repubblica.it is a website that can still count on 60 to 70% of direct traffic coming to its homepage. When Paul Walker died on December the 1st, 2013, this single article, this single story, get more traffic than Repubblica.it homepage itself. 60% of this new traffic came from mobile and tablet, and 57% of these visits came from social media. This was totally unprecedented to us, and it was a loud wake-up call because we understood that there was a large amount of new audience outside there that we were not succeeding to intercept with our contents. So we got that if we succeed to produce engaging contents, adding to these contents the power of social distribution and mobile consumption, we could reach a brand new audience. So we started to think about a place in which we could experiment new languages and formats and models to reach this new audience. We thought about a new website outside our established brands and channels devoted to virality, a website that should have social networks as its main distribution channels, a website that was mobile first designed, and so a place to experiment innovative models and languages to reach this new audience. So we created 3nz.it, we pronounce it trends.it. We like to call it a publishing playground because it's the place in which we can have the freedom to experiment, also the freedom to make mistakes, a freedom that we cannot have in our established and existing brands. I'd like to give you just some hints of the kind of work that we are doing on trends, especially about contents, and I can go more in depth if you like. About content curation, we knew that on Facebook and mobile, for example, in most of the cases, a title and an image is all you see on your wall. So our main focus on trends.it is on title and images editing. And we do a lot of work on that. And we developed dedicated fields in our CMS for Facebook titles, tweet text, and so on. And doing this kind of work, we got impressive results. For example, you can see here the same exact content published on trends.it and on republica.it. As you can see, the same content on Trends got more than 64,000 shares, where the same content on republica.it got 2,400 shares. That is quite impressive if you consider the difference in audience base of these two websites. Another kind of experimentation we are doing on Trends is that on chat apps as a mean for news and stories notification. And talking about the formats we are using most on Trends, obviously more than 90% is videos. And we are working also on format as listicles, I mean top 10 and so on. And playful contents as personality quiz, trivias, and so on. And just a few numbers of the results, about the results we achieved with this work on contents on Trends. Trends was launched on October the 1st, 2014. It got 80,000 Facebook fans so far. It got 2.3 million unique browsers on March, 60% from mobile and 80% from Facebook. And these results were achieved with no marketing investments at all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alessio. It's really interesting. When we were speaking before, you mentioned this issue with WhatsApp and how it can become a problem to be too successful in WhatsApp. Can you share that with the audience, what you were saying to me earlier?
Yeah. As I said, we are experimenting WhatsApp notifications on Trends, and it worked like a charm because we got a few hundred subscribers, and it was great. We sent notifications to our subscribers, and we got very high CTR, almost 30% CTR in some cases. So we try to transfer this experiment on our main brands at Republica.it, and it was an enormous success because we got more than 10,000 subscribers on the first day we launched the service. But at that point, we confronted with the, in fact, non-existent publisher dashboard on WhatsApp. I mean, as BBC probably know, WhatsApp is, it's for a big publisher on a large scale. It is like a Ferrari you can only drive in your courtyard, because when you try to go outside, to go in open space, I mean, you have no tools to manage a huge fan base, subscribers base. So this is an example of an experiment that we can conduct on a small scale, almost in vitro, on trends, and that it's difficult to duplicate on our main brands.
Thank you. Oh, it was up there, Ben. If you just leave it plugged in for a second. And then you just need to, yeah, it was attached.
Sorry?
It was good. Yeah, so it's up there. It's just this, you just need to drag it over. Nice. Maximize it from there too.
Shall I start?
Yeah, please.
I'm the editor of Channel 4 News. We're a 1-hour news program in the UK. We have a unique remit, I think, in the world, in that we're on for an hour in prime time from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock. We compete with the soap operas, with something called Coronation Street, something called Emmerdale Farm, and another program called EastEnders, which are the biggest ranking programs in Britain. And our program must be 40% foreign news. It has to have politics, economics, it must hold people to account, it must have investigations. And so we are in a unique place in the television market, trying to get people to watch serious, in-depth journalism and telling them about what's going on in the world. We have a third of our funding is for independent journalists, and the video I'm showing you here is something called The Horror of Homs, which is a film a French photojournalist called Manny made for us over 3 months in Homs. It shows the descent of the city into hell, and we showed it on our program. We got a lot of viewer feedback. We put it on our website, and we got 20,000 views, I think, over a week. We put it on YouTube, and it's now had 2 million views. And we realized that we couldn't market our own content to younger people by putting it on our own website. We had to put it on YouTube or other places. We only have 100 staff. We compete with people like the BBC, who have 8,000 staff. But we enjoy the competition, and our team of 8 online people are really, their strategy is to put our content on the platforms where it will be seen by most people. So we've gone on a journey where we've really realized we need to get our content on YouTube, on Facebook, on other places, but our regulator, Ofcom, recently told us that they want us also to pull viewers, younger viewers, to our website. And this is, yeah. The solution we've come up with. This is another piece of content. This is one of our interviewers interviewing Quentin Tarantino. This has had about 3 million hits. When we put it on our own website, our program is viewed by 700,000 people, but it was viewed by about 15,000. We put it on YouTube and it exploded. We then took our strategy to another level, which was to we were being told by audience research that we were primarily focusing on serious subjects, and that people wanted more passion. They wanted more opinion, which is the opposite to what we do on the program. On the program, we are objective, we're impartial, and we really try and give a balanced view of everything. We made a big mistake here, because I addressed the newsroom and I said to all our very old and experienced journalists, we're taking the brakes off, we want to appeal to younger viewers. Online, we can do different things to what we do on the television program. So we sent our presenter to, we sent our veteran presenter, Jon Snow, to, is that going to do it? We sent our veteran presenter, Jon Snow, to Gaza. He'd been to Gaza about 15 times. He felt he'd never told the truth. I was on holiday in Italy. He came back without my knowledge. He went into the studio and he gave his personal opinion of what he thought was going on in Gaza. It went viral. It got 3 million hits in 2 weeks. But we got heavily criticized by our regulator, by the other press, because the 30 years of objectivity and impartiality that we built, our reputation, had seemed to be squandered, because he was seen to be anti-Israeli and very pro-Palestinian, and he was visibly upset as he was talking about what he'd seen in Gaza, and it caused a huge controversy. So I addressed the newsroom again, and I said, everything I told you before is we're going to do the opposite, because what you can't do is have online, digitally, the characters who you see by night saying objective, impartial news. They can't suddenly reveal themselves as something different online, and the audience became confused, even though that's what young people wanted. It was an experiment that went slightly wrong for us. So recently we have
Started playing and then take over.
Is it?
Just start playing.
Yeah.
Just click over.
Recently we've reloaded Jon Snow for the digital age. This is him now explaining the budget in an objective and impartial way. But he's a very trusted figure in Britain. He's very beloved of young people. But at the same time, if he was, old people don't like to see him express his opinions, whereas young people do. So it's a very tricky balance we have to do. The final slide I'm going to show you is what we have created, because we're now getting, our best content is getting lots and lots of hits on YouTube, but we are trying to draw younger people to us. So we've started something last week called the Channel 4 News Wall, and I'll drag this across. I think it'll be self-explanatory. So they are essentially animated GIFs that simplify the news, not in a patronizing way, but we try and use humor or startling images I mean, when the graphics team first showed me this, I thought this is going to make people feel sick. But we launched it last week, and I think we've had 20,000. We've done no marketing at all, and I think 20,000 people have visited this. I mean, if you click on any of these, they give you a short text, and then they bring you back to the website or back to a YouTube page. But we're hoping that is the future of our strategy to get younger people.
It's a really interesting format. I haven't seen that anywhere else. It's slightly reminiscent of the way that Snapchat's Discover has sort of animated headlines. I don't know if you guys have explored Snapchat's Discover, the news experience within Snapchat, but they have the ability to use sort of short video clips as headlines. It's essentially a video headline, and it's kind of similar to that. I really like it. So can I ask you a question? In your opinion, is it more important to be serving the core audience or to appeal to a newer audience who might stick with you further into the future?
For me, it's more important to serve the core audience. We have about 700,000 or 800,000 viewers. You know, the programs we're up against, EastEnders and so on, have 7, 8, 10 million viewers. But our viewers are very, very loyal. If we mess around with the program, we're funded in a way to make the program. But when I told everyone to take the brakes off and to be more daring or more express more passion or emotion, I didn't actually say that, but that's how they heard it, and that was a mistake because actually you can't have journalism which is objective on one side and then hear the person afterwards explaining how terrible it was to see the children of Gaza suffer. I think you can to a certain extent, but once they start expressing their pain, it's only one move for them to start blaming someone for it. So we're slowly translating our viewing figures into digital figures. We're getting 40 to 50 million views per month, which for us is a big deal. But we find the best films, the best award-winning coverage we have on the program is also the best stuff that goes viral online, and there's very little difference.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to talk through a few examples of what we've been up to over the past year or so, reflecting I think a lot of what you've heard already, and I think the point that was made earlier about you know what are the key three drivers? What are we thinking about? I think that visual, social, and mobile is the strand that that fits through most of what I'm going to show you. Anyway, can I? Yeah. Is it going to stretch? Is that as good as it gets? That's fine. That's right. It's fine. That's fine. Okay. Actually, it's okay. I don't think I do need time. Thanks. Sorry, let me just take this back over here, sort it out. Okay, I've got sound anyway. Alright, is this gonna... Sorry.
I thought it was going to be a good idea to ask everybody to prepare some visuals for the talk, but clearly I didn't take into account the technical difficulties of that.
Or just our incompetence. Or mine, anyway. I suppose one thing, I would just pick up from what Ben was saying that he touched on a bit, and I think is the big challenge for, so BBC obviously, like Channel 4 in the UK is, sorry, excuse me, sorry, that's the wrong.
It's now mirrored.
I need not that, but the browser, Chrome browser.
I think the screen is just mirrored.
Okay, I think we'll just go. Yeah, okay, great, thanks. Yeah, just what I was going to pick up on was the thing about, for impartial news organisations or organisations that have to be impartial, the challenge, I think we're all seeing that when we're talking about trying to attract millennials or provide content that's going to engage them, it's really clear that emotion and an opinion is an important part of the content mix, and I think for us that really does bring a lot of challenges. So, I mean, we've had our brushes as well, although not recently as quite as significant as the one that Ben was talking about with John, but I'm sure that can't be too far down the track. What you're seeing on the screen is an example of a product, so a lot of we've been talking about these features that all these organisations have launched. We launched this about just over a year ago, and it was actually conceived by a guy who he's an American, but he was aware of a service that we used to run called CFAX, which is analog text that used to be served as part of the analog TV signal. I think there are equivalents in other countries as well. It was very popular in Britain throughout the 70s and 80s, 90s, and then it was closed down when the digital signal took over a few years ago. And he wondered what would CFAX look like in the digital age, and he came up with this idea for an Instagram-based video feature called InstaFax, which was meant to be this kind of amalgam of Instagram and CFAX, but ended up sounding like some kind of a fax machine brand from the 1970s or something. And this is an example, quite recently, obviously, a story that probably lots of people in the room will be familiar with, about this year's migrant crisis in the Mediterranean. So it uses the 15-second video feature on Instagram, overlaid with I'll stop it looping. Overlaid with text, because obviously, as we know, I think one of the things that we're all learning now is a lot of this video, especially on mobile apps like Instagram, is watched without the sound on, although there is obviously that music bed that you heard, but that's not essential to your understanding of and your consumption of the video. And also notice the sting, the brand at the end, to make sure that people, because obviously one of the things as has been touched on as well, that ongoing, when you're looking for off-site reach, when you're trying to get your audiences in places like Instagram, you've got to make sure they understand where your content has come from, so that you get that brand benefit from being there. I think one of the things we learnt from that was, first of all, although it sort of sounded like, and I was a fan of InstaFax, I thought it was a good name, I liked it, but I think we pretty soon realised that it was kind of more of an in-joke, I guess, or not a joke, but it was something that would mean something, certainly potentially to audiences in the UK, but this was meant to be something for international audiences, and the whole sort of CFAX thing obviously would be completely lost there. And the other thing we realised pretty quickly is that we actually wanted to use this video feature in other places other than Instagram. So although it was built on Instagram as a 15-second video, there's no reason why it can't be used in other platforms. So we changed the name, and it's now BBC News Shorts. So it's completely platform agnostic. We can put it wherever we like, and it also pretty neatly gets across what we're trying to do with it. So tell the news in short bites. We normally do about 2 to 3 of these a day. So a roundup of big stories, and then in one of them, and then a couple which focus on specific stories. So like this one. The other product that we've launched in the last year is, and this I think took some of the lessons from. So this is another one. I'll just quickly show you another short. So this is from the election campaign that's in the UK at the moment. You'll notice obviously quite a different formats, and obviously not the kind of video that you're going to see on our mainstream TV broadcasts aiming at our older core audiences. But we think kind of more fitting the kind of audience that we get on Instagram, trying to get the younger audience that are active on Instagram. And we've done this we've launched a pop-up election channel, as we called it, on Instagram, to serve these videos, which we're doing a few of every day. But the other product that we launched and we took some lessons from was an information graphic. I don't think my wife needs to be contacting us right now. This is a product that was, it's always in this format with an image overlaid with some text just to get across a key element from a story. So this one about obviously the plight of Christianity in the Middle East and with the ongoing rise of Islamic State and so on. And one of the things we made sure here is that we use it across different platforms. So Facebook, and we also put it out on Instagram alongside BBC News Shorts, on Twitter, obviously as well. And I have to say, I was actually a bit skeptical about this. I wasn't really sure that this quite sort of neat packaged product, but it sort of felt so neat that I wasn't really sure it was how well it was going to do. And actually, it's done phenomenally well. And considering that, relatively speaking, the resources you have to put into it is not huge, it's actually been a great success for us. And obviously, you can do quite a lot of different things with it. So this is one that we put up just yesterday, I think, with the launch of the new Star Wars trailer. So yes, you're going to have the plight of Christians, but also I think being able to have products that you can do different things with and have a range of tone, I think is quite important. So obviously this one about with the launch of the new Star Wars trailer the other day. So I was also just going to touch briefly on, we've launched a new program recently called Victoria Derbyshire, which is the name of the presenter, and it's our kind of new flagship morning TV news program. But one of the things that the production team behind it were really determined to do was to really make it digital first, or at least have digital much more at the heart of it, and not in a way you often hear, which is, oh yeah, we're going to be digital, which basically means tweeting about it. This one of the things they do, the stories they tell, they're trying to take a different approach to standard TV news, and try and take some of the things that we've learned from the kind of video that works very well in digital, and turn it into longer form, high impact TV news packages, or storytelling and video, which works for TV but also works online. So this is an example using animation, which obviously, graphics, I should say, graphical storytelling. So this is a story of a woman who was trafficked for sex into the UK, and it tells told the story using these, I think, very effective visuals with the graphics overlaid, telling you more about the story. So, and I think one of the things that's important about this is that I think in the up to now, a lot of the TV news material we've had has always gone out on TV first and then been sliced and diced and put in different places on digital. And a lot of that can work okay, but I think one of the lessons that we've learnt is the need to be thinking about digital from the very first stage. So something like this will have been put together. It goes up on digital first, so often the morning or the day before the program airs on TV, and it's very much with a view to, okay, how's this gonna work in digital. You'll notice we're talking about long form earlier, so obviously this doesn't work so well if you don't have the audio up, but this is a YouTube feature. It's longer, and I think exactly the same experience that we're seeing that longer form can work. So obviously we've got the 15-second material, but also longer form can work in the right places when it's the right kind of storytelling. I'm just going to briefly touch. So we had chat apps is something that we've been looking at. So I'm sort of here slightly under false pretenses, because there's a guy that I think quite a few of you know called Trishar Barrott, who works at the BBC and is our master chat app staffer, ninja. I thoroughly recommend a hashtag that he's started. We're going to talk about emojis in a second, but Emoji Think Tank, and he's a great guy to follow, and certainly if you're interested in chat apps and emojis. This is from the Ebola service that the BBC ran with some other partners in West Africa at the height of the Ebola crisis, basically designed to provide public information, health information in English and French to audiences in West Africa, and it was really successful. Got I think it was 70,000. I'll need to check this actually, it's somewhere else on my computer, but I think 70,000 subscribers, 80-90% of them in West Africa. Followed up on a project we did in India, in the Indian elections, and we had a English and Hindi service on WhatsApp. And I think we're seeing this as another way, really important way in illustrating, I think, that you've got to be going to where your audiences are, but also tailoring the content to the audiences in those places. So it's no good just taking what you do for your website or even for your TV, linear TV broadcast, and just pushing it out in all these places. You've got to be thinking about what people want in those spaces, what they're looking for, the tone, absolutely critical to get the right tone, to be thinking about the stories and how you tell them. The last thing I was just going to touch on is emojis. So quite controversial, I think. It reminds me of sort of some of the conversation around it reminds me of the early days of, or anything from sort of Twitter to news on Instagram, you name it, I think. This is a tweet that Andy Murray, the tennis player, sent on his wedding a few days ago. And as you can see, it did pretty well on Twitter. Got quite a lot of news coverage as well. Summing up how his day was going to unfold fairly accurately, I think. And I think this is another illustration of, obviously this is Andy Murray, but if it's news organizations thinking about how people consume what they do and the kind of language and technologies that they're using. This is an example from our Indonesian service. So the BBC has 27 language services serving different audiences around the world. And this is an interview that the Indonesian service conducted with a famous illustrator and cartoonist in Indonesia. And they conducted it through emojis as the questions and drawings back from the interviewee as the answers. And, obviously I don't read Indonesian, so my ability to sort of understand exactly what's going on here is limited. But I think doing these kinds of experiments, feeling the territory and using the culture and the technology that your audience is using is absolutely critical. And I think that's probably a good note to end my contribution on.
It strikes me, and maybe this is just because I'm a bit older, but it strikes me that understanding emojis takes quite a bit of effort. Right? When you see a tweet like that from Andy Murray, okay, it's about his wedding, but to actually go through and parse every single thing and understand what he said in totality is demanding a lot of the audience. I just wanted to point that out, that I think it's interesting because it kind of goes against the other trend, which is trying to make everything as easy and accessible as possible for the audience. Moving away from text towards visuals because visuals are more immediately engaging and easier. The brain actually understands visuals at a much quicker rate than reading text.
Yeah, I think it just goes, I agree with you up to a point, but I think it goes back to the point that especially in, perhaps not so much in Europe, but especially in Asia, emojis are, Trisha, I was chatting to him about this last week and used this phrase, behaviorally ingrained, and I think for where it is just part of the way you communicate, I think your ability to pass, as you say, a string of emojis is probably more advanced than for us oldies. Obviously I think Andy Murray, I guess the whole point of it really was that it was a very long string and it takes you a little bit of time to kind of work out what he's saying, and I'm not sure that a huge block of emojis as a direct substitute for, a text explanation of an item of news. I don't think that's really what we're talking about here. It's more about, and it's obviously got to suit the context and the story. But I think the short bursts, so like you saw the questions in the Indonesian language example, where the questions were just short bursts of emojis. I think that can work pretty well.
So I'd like to open it up to questions. Do we have a mic around here somewhere? No? We've got a question, but no mic.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Giordano Cosso, independent journalist. I think Ben touched a very interesting point on how, in a way, you reverted back after an experiment which was meant to be, let's say, to attract a different kind of audience. Also, Alessio mentioned that you have a specific, you've developed some more features in your CMS to be able to set up a different title, for example, on Facebook, for Facebook posts. That points to the fact that, in fact, to attract new customers, new readers, you need to perhaps simplify in some way the narrative. How dangerous is that in a way, as Ben said, in the risk of losing objectivity, as you said? I would like, in fact, to have the answers also, or comments from the other panelists to this problem. And because, as Alessio said, on Facebook, you have just one sentence and one photo, and that sentence needs to be pushy, and to be pushy, it can be objective, because an objective sentence normally doesn't attract viral traffic.
Yes, I agree that feeding these experiments in our main and established brands is our main challenge, and it can be risky to translate them as they are. I mean, without taking care of the kind of brands or platform you are working on. So the example I made about our CMS is about, a technological tool that we have introduced in our CMS. But of course, technology doesn't do the work from the editorial point of view. I mean, for example, for Repubblica.it, our main mission is to give to our audience the best news, real-time coverage. So I mean, you experimenting on other sites, you get new tools, new instruments, but the real challenge is how you can learn to use these tools and these instruments. And I also think that you can find a balance between editing the right title for Facebook, for example, and preserve your journalistic value.
Other questions? Anybody?
Per coinvolgere i giovani lettori è sufficiente essere presenti nelle piattaforme o devono cambiare anche i linguaggi di come vengono proposti gli articoli e le notizie, o sono i contenuti a dover cambiare?
Did you get anything?
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm really sorry. Yeah, we're on channel. I've got channel 3, but just missed the first part of it. Sorry.
On channel, ok.
Yes.
Sì, per coinvolgere i giovani lettori è sufficiente essere presenti nelle diverse piattaforme, quindi utilizzare diversi tipi di applicazioni, oppure devono cambiare i linguaggi o sono i contenuti a dover cambiare?
I'll take that first. It's a mixture. Sometimes the content you have from elsewhere will work fine. So in a breaking news situation, for example, We use the same line of text to multiple different places. So we've got a tool that's part of our content production system that allows us to send a tweet, an SMS, an email, and also an alert to our website, because that's what the audience needs in all those different places. You just need that line of text that tells you what this piece of breaking news is. But obviously, for a lot of, I think, what we've been talking about today, and I think probably the message from all of us is that you need to be thinking about all those things you mentioned, so content, tone, story selection, and tailoring it as much as you can for those different platforms. Unfortunately, that gives us all a headache when it comes to, and even the BBC with our 8,000 staff, when it comes to resourcing that. So you've got to be smart and look for things that will work on more than one platform, so some of what I was talking about, and also think about what platforms you're on and make sure that you're working really hard. So what's the audience on that platform that you want to attract, and making sure that what you're doing there attracts that audience. I don't know if anyone else.
Yeah, the more amazing the content we have, the more it will go viral. But there are 4 groups of, we've done a lot of research, and there are broadly 3 groups of young, for us, our imperative, because we have a lot of older viewers, is to get younger viewers or younger digital users. There are 3 different types. There are really serious news obsessives, which we have a lot of followers, and we have a lot of people, young, serious people who are really into the news. They follow Channel 4 News as one of their favorite websites or providers. Then there are the people in the middle who like to know stuff. They're young, and they like to know that if they're in the pub or they're part of a conversation, they know enough to feel it, to seem informed about the news. And then the largest, that's about 40%, and then there's 40% of young people who just don't care, and they just want to look at Kim Kardashian's ass on a beach and things like that. So you have to. But we've been told we have to provide content and try and hook all of those people. So the news wall that I showed there, which is it's sort of making fun of the news, or not demeaning the news, but really using startling images and clever text, is directly aimed at the second 2 audiences: the audience, the digital younger digital viewer who wants to know stuff but doesn't want to go in depth, and also the other digital audience that really doesn't think it cares, and actually says it doesn't really care and doesn't trust news. But we find when we've tested it that they like that. They like startling images, they like funny faces and things like that. But then when they click on it, they'll be coming to a serious story. We don't know what yet. We don't know how many of them yet, because it's not been going for long enough, are actually going on to the next story that might get them to Syria or to ISIS or to other serious content.
Yeah, I agree that it is, a mix, but I think that at the end, content is king. So you can totally miss to think about a specific audience or platform. But if you have great content in your hands, probably you can reach an audience that about you were not thinking about. But of course, knowing your audience and knowing the platforms in which your audience is allow you to exploit the potential of your stories. But I mean, it is all around content.
I've actually got a question for all of you guys. It strikes me that what we've been talking about is a lot of experimentation. was wondering if we could kind of go down the line and if you could share how you're actually structuring the experimentation. How do you find the air to experiment inside a newsroom where everybody is doing 50 million things? Are you hiring external teams? Are you finding people inside the newsroom and telling them stop doing what you're doing, do this instead? Or are you asking people to add in new responsibilities? Aurélien, could we start with you and just kind of go down?
Yes, sure. There is, I think, two things. One is sometimes it can be pretty difficult to say to someone, stop what you're doing, your routine, and let's try something new. So you have to convince them. The best thing is when you can, of course, hire some people, but most of the time you have to work with the people in the newsroom, of course, and you have to be very, I think, pragmatic, to test something, to show the interest for the journalist and for the reader, to show them something and to be very iterate, to test, to measure, to see if it's been working. For example, for our reports about holograms, it gives us some new idea about reports with holograms, and everybody was very excited about it. So I think to be excited, to entertain journalists and to bring them to innovation, you have to show them something and to show them the results, and it can be very. I think it can work this way.
Yeah, experimenting and involving newsrooms in experimentation is the hard part of this work, and it is also I mean a psychological work. I mean you can spot in the newsroom people that are more keen to experimentation or to innovation, and in most cases, the main leverage is, I mean, the fact that you can show them that experimenting and trying new formats, new languages, and new platforms, they can attract more audience on their contents. So it is also, I mean, a work on analytics, metrics, and on sharing this data with the newsroom.
For us, the first social media thing that caught on in the newsroom was Twitter, and our journalists are a lot of our journalists are very experienced. They're in their late 40s or early 50s, and some even they're in their 60s. They're very well known in the UK, and they're very serious journalists, television journalists. And to start with, they just thought Twitter was disgraceful. It was dumbing down. Two of them went on it, and Jon Snow, who's our most well-known person, he realized within about a week that it meant that he had control of his message to the audience, and he loved it. He got 100,000 followers in a matter of a month or two. And as soon as the others realized what it was, they started competing ferociously, and everyone now tweets. Then we had Facebook. People hated Facebook, and then one of them did it, and then they all got jealous, and so they all joined in. I mean, it's a very competitive environment, journalism and newsrooms, and as soon as one person makes a success, one journalist, the other journalists will all join in. But in terms of how we get, what we've done is we've deliberately brought in a whole range of younger people, many of whom are not journalists primarily. Some of them from advertising, some of them from startups. When I say a whole load, I mean I think about 5. And we have embedded them with the old journalists who are very experienced. And it's been a collaborative process where the old journalists have been telling them about objectivity, impartiality, reputation, the old classic journalism thing, and the younger people we brought in have been showing them graphics, new ways of doing video, and it's starting to work quite well. But we've made mistakes.
Yeah, I think for us, pretty much a combination of what the guys have just said. We haven't been able to hire lots of new people. We're cutting our budgets at the moment, so it's kind of thinking smartly about where you think there's the people are interested, that have the right skills and skills that are transferable. I think having quite an open mind to that as well, because sometimes people who you think, oh yeah, they're just doing that job, they love it, that's what they want to stay doing. In fact, if you give people the opportunity, and I think some of what Ben was saying about introducing an element of competition, making sure people understand what's going on and that those opportunities are there, that's important as well. But I think in one of the places where we've had most success has been where we've taken people out, sometimes physically, of where they're working, of the newsroom, and we've sort of said to people, okay, off you go and just go and do this for a bit and see what happens. Rather than saying, okay, on top of everything else you're doing, stay where you are, but can you start doing a little bit of this as well? And that I don't think works. So it's a combination of all those.
It sounds like across the board, it's kind of about if you want to experiment well in the newsroom, it's about identifying the right people, exciting them, educating them, and empowering them. I think that's a pretty good place for us to wrap up. Oh, we have maybe one more question here at the front. Yeah?
Sì, mi chiedo quanto sia possibile con questo trend, no? Visual molto, molto forte, molto importante, mettere insieme gli approfondimenti di inchiesta tradizionali, classici, giornalisti, quindi con un long form storytelling, di approfondimento serio, no? Con tutto questo, sicuramente una formula ci sarà, ma mi chiedo e vi chiedo, vi siete posti questo problema? Cioè i contenuti più lunghi, che richiedono più tempo, più approfondimento, si legano facilmente con tutto quello che abbiamo visto adesso? E ultima domanda correlata, è possibile coinvolgere i giovani anche, no? Con un linguaggio giovane rispetto a questo problema?
Aurélien, maybe you want to take this, as you talked a bit about long form at the beginning.
I think, if I've understood the question, but you can, for example, share long form content, recommend them to your friend if you are a millennial. I think when we talk about sharing, about talking to people, about social media, we always think about LOL formats, GIFs, and everything like that. But long form and even explainers are also shared on social media. So I think we have to find an engaging formula, an engaging tone, great stories too, engaging stories. But there is not the tone. I think when you are talking about the tone, it's very important too. We are talking about great story, great angle, but the tone also is important. But when you look at Vice.com, you have 20 minutes long documentary. They have great stories, a great tone, and it's working pretty well too. I don't know if it was your question, but
yeah. Anybody want to add anything?
Yeah, the news wall, the startling images, the different use of language and images, which is the opposite to what the program does, is a deliberate hook to try and get people to a 12-minute film about Homs. And we don't know if it works yet, but we hope it does. But we know if we don't do it, then only the people who will always watch our program and the serious, in-depth news users will watch a 12-minute thing about Homs. But we've made real mistakes. I mean, we interviewed a woman as part of a 6-minute package where we were going through the north of England. We had a black presenter who asked her a question, and she said she had moved to the countryside because she didn't like being surrounded by blacks in the city. And he said, "Oh, right, that's interesting." And she didn't even register. It was a very interesting exchange, but my social media guy just cut that bit and said, woman expresses racist views, and put it on Facebook. So it was 20 seconds of her being racist out of a 6-minute piece. And I had to tell him, no, that's not, you use it as a hook, but I mean, by doing that, he had basically put her in I described it as put her in digital stocks in England in the medieval times. People used to be put in the village square in stocks, and people would throw tomatoes at them and rotten fruit and I don't know. And we've got to be very careful that when we have a startling moment, which is strong opinion, it is, or it's violence, or it's something that provokes a lot of emotion, that if you are going to use it to hook someone in, you put it in the context of everything else, or else you just become part of what I call the toilet wall of Twitter, which is when you know, in the 80s in England, if you went into a public toilet, there would be all sorts of, you know, your grandmother, all this sort of stuff. That's what Twitter can be like, and you have to avoid doing that. So you have to be very, very, very careful in the images you use and the language you use if you're shortening long content to short.
While you were talking, I was thinking about, for example, Upworthy, that indeed does a great work spotting visual contents, long format contents, also videos. For example, on YouTube, that video that are thought-provoking, and they do a great job. For example, extracting a very good and engaging title from that content without going where you were saying. I mean, l'effetto gogna, no? That's what he was talking about. I mean, I think that you can find a way, and we are trying to find a way to engage people without cutting the edge. I mean.
All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you guys all for joining the conversation and sharing not only your successes but your mistakes too. Really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you.